All right, ready to dive deep?
Always.
Today we're tackling a big one, like really big.
Let me guess. Not going to be the reign of Emperor, what's his name? We did that last month.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Think 19th century China, but way more intense than your average dynasty drama.
Okay, 19th century, lots of upheaval, Taiping Rebellion.
Bingo! You're about to get more than a passing reference, my friend. We're talking one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. World War I levels of devastating.
Whoa, okay, now you've got my attention. Most people, they hear Taiping Rebellion and it's just a footnote.
Right. Time to change that. So to even wrap our heads around it.
We got to set the stage.
Exactly. Imagine China, 1800s, the Qing dynasty. Not exactly in its prime, right?
Not even close. Think internal corruption, overpopulation, and oh yeah, those opium wars definitely didn't help.
Basically, the king are sitting on a powder keg.
And into this powder keg, you drop the Hakka people.
Okay, gotta admit, my Hakka history is a little rusty. Who were these guys? Why so important?
So Hakka were Han Chinese, BUT. They'd migrated south over generations. By the time they reached, say, Guangdong, all the good land's gone.
So they get stuck with the short end of the stick, even amongst other Han Chinese.
Pretty much. Constant struggle, prejudice, the whole 9 yards. And this is where our story gets interesting. Enter Hong Xiuquan, Hakka. Big ambitions, even bigger frustrations.
Sounds like someone's about to have a life-changing experience. Can't wait to hear more about this guy. So we've got Hong Xiuquan, our ambitious Hakka, trying to make it in a system that seems determined to keep him down.
And believe me, the pressure to become a scholar official, it was immense. Like, that was the path to success back then.
Right, except our Wikipedia source says he bombed the imperial exams multiple times. Not exactly a recipe for a happy life.
Oh, it was devastating for him, for his family's reputation. Imagine pouring your heart into something only to be told you're not good enough, again and again.
Yeah, that'll breed some resentment for sure.
And that resentment becomes, well, let's just say it takes a very interesting turn. Hong starts having visions, intense ones.
Okay, here comes the religious rebellion part. We're talking divine messages, right?
You could say that. He's
Yeah.
talking about ascending to heaven, meeting his celestial family. Oh, and he met Jesus.
Hold on. Jesus. As in the Jesus.
The one and only. According to Hong, they're brothers.
Whoa. Okay, how did someone in 19th century China even hear about Christianity, let alone decide he's related to Jesus?
Missionaries had been around for centuries, but Protestant groups were really gaining traction in the 1800s. They handed out these pamphlets, and here's the thing. Translations were, shall we say, creative.
So not exactly your Sunday school Christianity.
Not even close. You've got Hong trying to mesh these frankly bizarre interpretations of the Bible with his own visions, his anger at the king. It's a recipe for something radical.
And this is where the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom comes in.
Precisely. Hong's not just rebelling against an emperor, he's declaring war on the entire Confucian order. He's got a new divine mandate. He is the Heavenly King.
So way bigger than just swapping one ruler for another. He's talking about tearing down the whole system and rebuilding it in the image of his visions.
You got it. And for a while there, it looked like he might actually succeed. The king were completely unprepared for what hit them.
Seriously. I mean, the Qing dynasty, they weren't exactly pushovers.
True, but they underestimated Hong's movement. It goes from a small band of followers to this massive, disciplined army. They're winning battles, taking cities. By 1853, they've captured Nanjing.
Nanjing, that's a pretty big deal, right? Wasn't that one of the old capitals?
Huge deal. They declare it their heavenly capital. It's a direct challenge to the king's legitimacy, a sign that Hong's vision might actually become reality.
Wow. From failing exams to founding a new kingdom. Talk about a glow-up.
Yeah, except this is where the story takes a dark turn. Think total war. And I'm not talking about some abstract concept. We're talking brutality on a scale that's hard to comprehend.
Gogol War. It's a phrase you hear a lot, but when you really dig into what it means for the people on the ground, it's horrifying.
Absolutely. We're not just talking about armies clashing on a battlefield. We're talking about the complete breakdown of society, civilians caught in the crossfire. It's ugly.
Our source, it paints a pretty grim picture. Scorched earth tactics, massacres. They even specifically mention the Taiping targeting Manchu people.
Yeah, that was a dark chapter. For Hong, the Manchus, they weren't just political rivals, they were evil.
Yeah.
Had to be purged entirely.
So you have these mass killings, villages wiped out, all in the name of creating this new utopian society.
It's that toxic mix of ideology and desperation. And it wasn't just the Taiping. The Qing armies weren't much better. They were brutal. Once that cycle of violence gets going, It's almost impossible to stop.
And in the middle of all this, you've got the Taiping army itself. I mean, we mentioned it before, but they had women fighting in their ranks, actual soldiers.
It was pretty radical for the time. They weren't just relegated to support roles either. These women, they were trained, they saw combat, some even rose to command positions.
Our source mentions a couple by name, Su Sanyang, Q Ersao. Fascinating stories, definitely worthy of their own deep dive someday.
Agreed. Though it is worth noting, as the Taiping movement became more centralized, they kind of moved away from that early embrace of gender equality.
It's always more complicated than it seems, right? So, how did this army, even with their female soldiers, how'd they hold off the Qing dynasty for so long? It must have been huge.
Numbers helped, but they were also surprisingly good at modern warfare.
Wait, really? I just assumed the king would have had better weapons, more advanced tactics.
You'd think so, but the Taiping, they were adaptable. They traded with Europeans for firearms, even set up their own factories to produce guns and ammo.
Wow, talk about forward thinking. So if they were so well equipped, so driven, what happened? Why'd they ultimately lose?
Well, the king, they weren't just sitting back, twiddling their thumbs. They realized their old way of fighting those huge, centrally controlled armies, it wasn't working against the Taiping.
They needed a new strategy.
Exactly. And that's where someone like Zhang Guofan comes in. Our source calls him a military mastermind, and honestly, it's not an exaggeration.
He's the one who turns the tide.
He's a big part of it. He forms the Shang army, which was basically made up of locally recruited soldiers, guys with a personal stake in defeating the Taiping.
So the king, they outsource their army to someone who actually understands how to fight this new kind of war.
It was a smart move. The Shang army, they started winning battles. The Taiping, they were weakened by internal power struggles. By 1864, Nanjing falls, their heavenly capital.
And that's the end of the rebellion.
Officially, yeah. But the king, they wanted to make sure it stayed dead. They spent years stamping out any remaining resistance, brutal campaigns, the human cost of this whole thing. It's almost impossible to imagine.
Millions dead, the economy in shambles. You said it before, but it really makes you think about what total war actually means.
It's a sobering thought, and it forces us to ask, what was it all for? What lasting impact did the Taiping Rebellion have? Was it a complete failure?
Because there's got to be more to the story than just devastation.
Right. On the surface, yeah, it looks like a failure. The Qing dynasty survives, Hong's vision dies with him. But here's the thing about revolutions, even the ones that fail, they plant seeds.
Seeds of what?
Seeds of change. The Taiping, they might not have gotten what they wanted, but their ideas, social equality, land redistribution, challenging the status quo, those ideas, they resonated. They influenced later reformers, revolutionaries.
They inspired others to pick up the torch.
Exactly. And you can't talk about the Taiping Rebellion without talking about its impact on probably the biggest revolution in Chinese history, the Communist Revolution.
Mao Zedong, he was inspired by the Taiping.
It's debated, of course, but there are definitely parallels. Both movements drew strength from the peasantry. Both promised radical social change. Both weren't afraid to use force to get their point across.
It makes you wonder, would Mao's revolution have even been possible without the Taiping laying the groundwork, even if unintentionally?
Fascinating question, right? And that's the legacy of the Taiping Rebellion. Even in defeat, their struggle for a more just and equitable society, it continued to inspire.
A powerful legacy.
Yeah.
So while this deep dive might be over, the questions, the connections, they linger. That's the beauty of history, right? It's not just dates and names, it's about understanding the forces that shape our world, the echoes of the past that still resonate today.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep diving deep.